So, you won't have seen it here before. At least I'll be a bit unnerved if you have, because this is my secret lair where I keep kind of the overspill from my cars and bikes that I can't keep at home. Used to be absolutely full, but I'll get to that in a minute and explain why it isn't so much now. Let me just talk you through what there is very quickly. Here, luxuriating for some reason in its own special cocoon, is a Suzuki GSXR 1100. I've got one because when I was a kid learning to ride, 16, on my little 50, these were starting to come out, the earlier version of this, the slab-sided one, and it was kind of the pinnacle of the capacity race. Bigger was better, and the Japanese were turning out ever bigger, larger capacity sports bikes, because that, despite its bulk and girth, is a sports bike. And that was it. It peaked at 1100, and then they didn't go any further, and everybody started making them smaller and lighter, and in 1992, the Honda Fireblade came out and rendered that completely prehistoric. I've got it because I love it. It's awful, but I love it. Done about 6,000 miles there. Every one of them screaming. This will be familiar to you if you've been looking at our content on DriveTribe over the years. It's my Mustang 1968 390 GT in Highland Green. That's its original colour. It's not a Bullitt tribute car. That's the Mustang in the famous Bullitt movie where it's being chased by Chargers. And you know the film. That's the car from it. I've had that for, I'm going to say, 15 years, give or take. It's part of my life, part of the furniture of my life. It's also filthy right now. Needs a bit of a bath, but I adore it. There's something about a Mustang. Something about the scale of it, the look of it, the feel of it, and the fact that I was asked about it today, actually. Somebody was, oh, that's gorgeous. What's it like to drive? Expecting the answer to be a bit like when you look at a Lamborghini Countach, and yeah, oh, it's just the most amazing looking thing, but I'd rather drive this barn than that Lambo. That actually works. It's nimble, light, limited slip diff. It's a really fab little car to operate. XK150, I'm guessing you'll be more than familiar with that from our content here on DriveTribe, but also from watching my workshop show. This car was turned around magnificently by Neil and Anthony at the very, very start of our little adventure together. It did the Tulip Rally in 1959. It's a 150 FHC in its original dove grey and red interior. I adore it. I adore it because, above all else, the look, the feel, the heart of it, that engine, that straight six XK engine, was, still is, and always shall be a masterpiece. One of the most expressive, glorious sounding, wonderful, fizzy, dynamic, exciting little engines, even beautiful to look at. I adore that. That makes me happy. This next step makes me quite sad, because in there used to be my 1969 911T, little fizzy engine, 2.7, rare engine, and it's gone. I sold it, as you'll have seen on season 1 of the workshop on Discovery Plus. I sold it to pay for some of the equipment. That went along with my Lotus Esprit 350 Sport and my Bentley to buy an oven, a prep bay, and a paint room. Actually, we've just been in here recording for the show today, and I said in it, it's like a sarcophagus to me. This next bay is also quite sad, because this is a Jaguar XK120, sister car to the 150. This is an open two-seater. I've still got big plans for this car. I want it in Old English white. I want it debumpered. I want it slightly lower. I want it on black wires. I want it to be in an angry state of tune with a hot cam. Bit like I've done with the engine on the 150, but I want to go further and make this a properly angry little car. The people I want to do that for me are, and always would have been, Neil and Anthony and Andrew. However, we've set up in business together, as you've seen on our show, and every hour they work must be paid for. I can't afford to have them working on my car, which means it's sitting here. Well, what it's doing is rusting, because that's what cars do when you leave them alone. Continuing our tour around my once packed full of delights secret barn, that's Cam's Mini, which you will have seen, I'm sure, when you watched season 1 of the workshop. We did that for him for a very, very modest price. A lot of work. It's a beautiful job. It's in here because, actually, the truth of it is, he's got nowhere to keep it at home, and over winter, I agreed, all right, put it in the barn, because if it sits outside his house, it'll end up back in the same hedge we pulled it out of in the first instance and be once again ruined. And You've got to love a classic Mini. It's the law, you have to. In this corner over here, this is the least glamorous tour of any automotive museum anybody's ever given. This corner, there's a lot of rubbish, axle stands, cages, bits and pieces out of Neil's old workshop from when we emptied it and moved into our new one. But the main feature for me is, and again, as a regular DRIVETRIBer over the years, you possibly will remember this car. It's my Land Rover Series 1. It's the one I drove on Top Gear 20 years ago. And I bought it, I've had it ever since. I stripped it to restore it, and as you can see, it's just going from strength to strength. It's in there. There's appear to be now 2 spare tubs, one old one. The one in the middle is the original tub off the car. The one to the left is another one off another car I bought and stripped for parts. The one off the right is a replacement one because the one in the middle is broken. You see what I mean? It's gone nowhere, but it's there. If you imagine all of that assembled crisply and beautifully by genius mechanics and fabricators such as Neil, Anthony and Andrew Greenhouse, you've heard of them, that's what it would look like. Onwards, over here, this is a bit of an insight because you won't have seen this on the show. I bought this Peugeot pickup. I've got plans for it. I'm not going to say any more than that right now. You might see that again. This is a sort of really secret, but you will see this MGB GT. I'm going to come back to that. Let's just put a little marker there. We'll voyage back round to that when we've gone to the end. Over there, I suspect you have seen that on a certain television show featuring me and my 2 idiot friends. 72, Buick, Riviera, Boattail. I kept it. I want to do stuff with that. I might put that to you as an option at some point in the future. Maybe it's something we find a way we can do together. We make the decisions on what do we do with it. Do I slam it, get it all murdered out and black and mean? Do I leave the supercharger on? Do I take it? I don't know. But maybe let's deal with that one in the future. That's the chassis for my Series 1. A spare chassis off another Land Rover Series 1 I bought for parts, and actually the chassis off an XK120 that we used to jig the parts on to make sure the body panels fit, which they don't in the end. Most of the bikes are now at my house. There's a few waifs and strays here. Ducati 916, which I bought because that is a future classic because it broke the mold. There's some bikes that have done that. The original GSXR, the original Z900. That's one of those bikes. The original Vincent Black Shadow, Rough Superior. If you're not into bikes, I'm sorry, come back. I'll stop talking about bikes, but that is a classic. At the back, BMW R90S, that was a fast bike in its day. This, a Sealy chassis, it's a Honda, an old Honda CB750, one of James's favourite bikes, but re-chassied as a Sealy. That is my wife, Mindy's Harley. Very quickly on that, I bought it for her 40th birthday, along with a direct access bike course, which if you're not a biker, it's when you join and a week later you leave with your licence. So that is now I'm going to say, I won't tell you how old that makes it, but it's more than a year or 2 old. And where's the keys live on this thing? Are they in it? No. I can tell you, it's done, I think it's just shy of 200 miles. She didn't take to biking. I might do something with that bike one day. Anyway, as a conclusion to this brief tour of my once rammed box of delights, I said about going back to this car. So, it's a 72, I think, MGB GT. It is the last car I drove on Top Gear before everything changed. I drove it because we did an item when we said, let's address classic cars. The other 2 don't really like classic cars, I do. I bought this because I thought, well, it's the archetypal everyman classic, isn't it? It's the cheesiest classic, an MGB GT. I'd never driven one until I drove it on that show, so I drove it. And I couldn't believe it. I thought it was the most spectacular little car. It's got a feeling of completeness to it. Yes, we wouldn't look at it twice, because it's so common, they're not rare. Actually, it's a crisp, lovely, beautifully balanced, Pininfarina styled, lovely little old British coupe. And I have a plan for it. It's quite a big plan. I want to take the smallest cog to a new level. My workshop. I need to put us in front of people who have interest in classic cars, passionate owners. and people who need work done on their cars, and a more passionate bunch of owners of more interesting cars I don't know than people who race classic cars. So I am going to take that racing as Team Smalley's cog, and we are going to race alongside people with other classic cars, and they are going to learn to know us. And when we watch them smear their car down the wall and into the tyres, we'll be racing alongside them. I should give them a business card, and hopefully they'll give the car to us to straighten out. And then once we've straightened it, they'll bend it again. Then we'll straighten it again. That's my genius plan. If you want to find out what we're going to do with that car and how it unfolds and see it as it happens on Discovery Plus in Richard Hammond's workshop, click the link in the description below.